everyone, it's Justine and welcome to a new video tutorial. Today I am making 3 cards and showing you how you can apply ink to your backgrounds without using the standard blending tool. I'm going to be using scrapbook.com's exclusive brushes here. Now they're a really large brush and they have a medium size, I would say, head on them in comparison to some of the ones I've used in the past. And I'm going to use them to apply 4 colors of ink. Now, I'm using the blue line from scrapbook.com. It consists of 4 different inks, and I checked out these inks the other day on a Facebook Live, and I will link to that below in the video description. I talk lots about the inks and the really good things about them, so let me mention a few things. First of all, they have finger grips on the side, which is really nice so that you don't drop your ink pads. The other thing that's really nice about them is they come in gradient tones, so they come in 4 different shades, most of the colors. And I like the fact that they have their own unique names, but they also have a small name underneath that says Blue 1, Blue 2, Blue 3, Blue 4. So it makes it really, really easy to know which ones you have to stamp first, all the way to last. There are 51 colors in their inks. These are hybrid inks. It means that they are really, really, really juicy inks, and I really enjoy using them. They stamped perfectly in the live, and you can see exactly how they stamp with stamps at the end of the video. So I'm now applying things with the large daubers. This is also an exclusive to scrapbook.com. They come in a 4-pack, so it's really perfect because a 4-pack will work for your entire ink combination color, so blue 1, 2, 3, and 4. And also what's really nice about them is they're washable, so you can wash them if you like, or if you wanted a set for each one of your inks, that works too. Now these ones here, you can tell, created a sort of medium tone of ink. When I created with the brushes, they created a very light tone over top of the cardstock, and you also had a lot of texture in it. That was due to the bristles of the brush. These large brushes here provide also a very nice and even tone, and I find they're really easy to handle and really easy to grip. I decided to start off with some of the lighter color and then I went in with the darker color because I knew I wanted to create a blue background that slowly faded into white. So it had to be the darkest at the bottom, and then into the medium colors, and lastly into the lightest color. Overall, these inks are really smooth and creamy and easy to use for blending. The cardstock I'm using here is Nina Solar White cardstock. So I just go ahead and dunk them into the ink, and a little ink goes a long way. So it's really important when you get to the top of the layers when you're doing this is to use a light hand and a circular motion because you want to eventually have it just end into the white without it being too much of a harsh line. So the third background that I'm going to be using today are going to be using the smaller stamp daubers. I'm going to be using all 4 of the same inks, and these ones here are perfect because your finger will slip right inside them. They don't create, however, as smooth as an appearance, and it is the darkest, in my opinion, out of the 3 backgrounds that I did. As you can see, because I'm adding some pressure, I'm getting some of the lines from the dauber itself because it has a smaller surface area. So it's a little harder to get a smoother blend than it does with bigger areas of applying the ink. So the brushes covered a lot of ink, as well as the larger daubers had a larger surface, so it was easier to blend. That's not to say that you can't get a smooth background with the finger daubers. It's been a really long time since I've used them, and practice makes perfect, of course. So as long as you keep practicing, you'll eventually get it. Going in a circular motion and starting off on your glass mat, and then moving your way into the cardstock will help you to get a smoother look. I was doing things a little bit quickly, so it's important to remember to not put too much pressure on your finger as you're doing it, and to slowly build up your layers. It takes time and patience to get a perfect blend. So I'm going to continue in with some of the darker colors now, just to darken things up. I wanted to create a really dark background for this one, so I wanted to add a little more of the darker colors in this one and do a light to a dark blend. So this one goes in sort of an ombre look with all of them. And I go back and forth between the 2 colors as well. In all honesty, I wasn't trying to get the most smoothest look in my cardstock because I wanted that texture and that depth. I wanted it to look like a cold winter's night, and that never has the same shade in the sky. So now I'm going in with my darkest color here and filling in some of the areas, and then I'm going back in with the second darkest color to just fill in some of the areas to make it look blended. As I mentioned with the ink, it's really easy to know which ink to use when because of the name underneath blue 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we'll look at all the backgrounds side by side. This one was done with the smallest of the daubers, and then the middle with the brushes, and the one on the right with the largest daubers. I'm going to be using some of the new stamps from the scrapbook.com release that I'm going to be using in another video this week as well. So I'm really excited that I get to play with them more than once and give you multiple inspirational ideas on how to use them. I'm using my embossing bag to press the surface, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start laying down my background. I'm going to be using the Rustic Christmas Wreaths stamp set here, and I'm just going to turn it so that it looks like it's supposed to be the proper way. This one has a little bit of an oval shape, and I'm going to go ahead and ink that up using some VersaMark ink. I wanted to heat emboss this. Now, if you're doing this, it's really important that you heat emboss this on a surface that is dry. So I did leave off my cards, and I went and had dinner and waited a couple of hours so that they were completely dry. In order to make sure, you can run your embossing bag over top. You can put some embossing powder to test it, and if the embossing powder sticks everywhere, then it's not quite ready just yet. So I'm just going to cover it using my Tonic Nouveau spoon here, and I'm going to tap off the excess embossing powder. And I like to tap the back of the cardstock as well, just to make sure the rest of it falls off. So that background is now prepped, and I can go ahead with my Wagner heat tool and just heat emboss that. Now I'm going to do this on all 3 of the cards, so I'm going to show you what I stamped on each one of the cards, but I'm not going to show you the heat process just because I'm going to save time, but this is what I do. I let my heat gun heat up for about 45 seconds to a minute, and then I go ahead and apply it to the cardstock so that it doesn't warp too much when I go ahead and stamp it. This one warped quite a bit, but I think I had my heat tool a little bit too long on some of the areas. For this one here, this was done with the large daubers. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a background. I'm prepping once again with the embossing bag, and I'm going to create a repeat pattern. I'm going to be using the Elegant Christmas stamp, and I've lined up Merry Christmas and Happy over on the side. Now I've done this on a little bit of an angle. I'm going to pick them all up using my MISTI stamping tool. Now this is going to be a lot easier to use a stamping tool than a standard block, so I do recommend that. I'm going to go ahead and emboss it using VersaMark ink. Now if I were to go back and redo this, I would have actually placed my cardstock at the top of my MISTI so that it was easier to bring down when I decided to move the stamps. So I'm going ahead and I'm stamping them once down onto the cardstock, and then I took it and I slid down my cardstock about 3/4 of an inch, and I just kind of eyeballed it and made sure it was straight. I added the VersaMark once more, and then I stamped it again. I'm going to create a repeats pattern so that I have this really fun background. And what I keep doing is I keep moving the cardstock down. Now I'm not sure if you know this, but when you stamp with your cardstock off of the MISTI, it doesn't bend your cardstock at all. So if your paper is too big for the MISTI, it's not a big deal. So I stamped that 3 times because the rule of 3s with your eyes is that it's more attractive when there's 3 sets of something. And so I decided 3 would be a perfect amount to stamp this. I'm going to add the embossing powder once again. Now I apologize, it got a little bit dark in my craft room, so I had to turn on my lights here, and I'm going to go ahead and just do this final background. This one was done with the brushes, and once again you can really see the texture that those bristles made. Now if you don't like all of that texture, you're just going to have to keep going over it in layers, and a lot of people find that when you use these large brushes, it's really a lot easier than using the blending tools. So if you're someone who struggles getting a perfect blend each time on your cardstock using a blending tool or sponge daubers or finger daubers, then I really would recommend trying the brushes. Yes, you get a little bit of a lighter look, and it may take you a longer time to build up the color, but I find it a lot easier to have the pressure that you need by using the brushes versus the sponges. So now that I have all of these wreaths down, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp all 5 of them to create a really fun background that has all of these different elegant pieces attached to it. This is going to be a perfect background. So I'm once again going to go ahead and cover this with white embossing powder. And that's really just the end of my card. The only thing that I decided to do afterwards, and it's not on screen, is just stamp the word Merry Christmas and add it to the front of this card. You'll also notice that Merry Christmas was stamped in the same blue that I used to create the backgrounds, so they match perfectly. And you'll also be able to notice in the photo how much of a crisp stamp that was, stamping with the hybrid ink. They are really, really high quality inks, and I enjoyed using them for this video. If you're interested in checking out any of the other videos on my channel, I'll have a suggestion below, and you can always subscribe to my channel if you're interested. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you this week for another video. Bye!